Does frequent shampooing cause hair loss?
One of the most common myths that I get in my office is they said that washing your hair too often is bad for you. It's always they. And that's because it's usually coming from multiple people. It's kind of one of those things where you heard about something when you were younger and everyone thought the same thing. And then you come to find out that there was no truth behind it. I'm not saying that there's a one size fits all to everyone's hair health, but we are forgetting about the word hygiene. The purpose of a shampoo is like a face wash. The primary source of a shampoo is to clean the skin, not the hair. Just like tonight, I'm not washing my beard, I'm washing the skin that grows my beard. So think of it like this. In a 24-hour period, we all produce some form of oil, which is sebum. Then there's sweat, which is different than sebum. And every day, our dead skin cells slough off. Now, your hair is a sponge. The minute you walk outside, it will be affected by pollution, allergens, hair products, and whatever else is in the atmosphere. So the more days you go without washing, the more that will all accumulate and sit on your skin. Think of it as a plaque layer. But because it's microscopic and you may still have quite a bit of hair, you just don't see it. Think of it when you wake up in the morning and you go to the bathroom and you see that you're very shiny. You're able to see that because you don't have hair in the way. But when I use a scalp microscope, you will actually see all the plaque that's built up. So what tends to happen is the plaque will surround the pores at the base of the hair shaft. But if we have an accumulation of oil, the problem with that is oil actually has fat, right? So when we have all this fat, we all produce fungus, bacteria, and viruses that are in what we call a microbiome. They're actually there to protect you. But when there's an imbalance of fungus and too much is being produced because it's feeding off the fat inside the oil, we can get dandruff. And 50% of the world has dandruff. There are other causes, but a big one is allowing the oil to continue to accumulate until you wash again. A little more intense form of dandruff is called seborrheic dermatitis. That's where we'll see a little bit more inflammation or redness. That's where the word itis comes from in medicine. There's more inflammation and redness. And there are countless studies that show that the more worse your seborrheic dermatitis is on your scalp, the more stress-induced shedding you'll get. Think of it like this. If the soil isn't happy, the crops won't grow. So I can have a patient that has genetic hair loss, exacerbated by testosterone use, exacerbated by certain lifestyle factors. Then they can have stress-induced shedding because we find out they have nutritional deficiencies. And then they also have stress-induced shedding because they have scalp inflammation. What I'm getting at is hair loss is a lot more complex than what is told out in the community. And if you're a true hair loss specialist, you are evaluating not just the outside or the hair, you're also evaluating everything on the inside. Furthermore, when we talk about hair washing, we have to also discuss what are we supposed to look for in a shampoo. Remember, guys, shampoos and conditioners are part of the beauty market. They're going to sell you with the smells, the messaging, the branding. At the end of the day, what we need to look for is where the pH sits. 75% of brands have a pH in the wrong space. So if we go back to science class, we know a pH of 7 is neutral. Anything that's higher than that is alkaline. Anything less than 7 is acidic. Your skin sits between 4.5 and 5.5, so it's slightly acidic, but your hair shafts are 3.67. So what happens is when your hair is clean, when using the right shampoo and conditioner, your hair gets back to where it should be. But at the end of every day, with all the accumulation of oil, sweat, debris, dead skin cells, hair products, allergens, and pollution, that is going to make the skin and hair become more alkaline. So when we talked earlier about fungus overload and overgrowth, funguses love moisture, but they also love alkaline environments. So when you're washing your hair with a shampoo and conditioner that's between 4.0 and 5.0, you're never going to give that fungus the alkaline environment that it wants because you continue to reset your pH levels. But now let's take it one step further. When we look at our hair shaft, the outside of our hair shaft is called the cuticle. Think of it as a hair window. When your hair shaft stays acidic, the cuticle stays sealed. And what that allows is for water, which makes up 3% of our hair, to stay inside. So if we're sealing the window and water stays in, we actually get more hydration. So the hair becomes softer, more voluminous, and shinier. So the old theory that washing your hair every day will dry out your scalp and your hair is only going to happen if we're not using the right pH in your shampoo and conditioner. Now let's look at the alternative. If we don't use the right pHs and your cuticle stays open, it can either draw water out, or when you get your hair wet, because it's open, the protein bonds become weak. And since the cuticle stays open, you can actually waterlog your hair as well. So we really want to create a seal. Now, when we talk about conditioners, the story is the same. We need to be looking for a pH between 4.0 and 5.0. A lot of people don't condition. When it comes to men, it's just one extra step they don't want to do. When it comes to men and women with fine hair, they get scared to use it because they feel like it weighs their hair down or makes it greasy. The number one reason why that happens is not only the product that you choose, but also how you're using it. A conditioner only needs to be used from the midpoint of your shaft and out, or to the ends. The reason why is the oil or sebum production that comes from under the skin. It's going to lubricate your scalp, and it typically can go up to 1 inch to 1.5 inches on your hair shaft. So when someone has fine hair and they put conditioner all over their hair, but also on their scalp, no matter how well you wash it out, it's going to keep it weighted down or feel very heavy or greasy. So what I always tell people to do is, if you're a man, for example, you'll put about a dime size in the palm of your hand, and I like to move it more towards the webbing of my fingers. And then I lean down, and my whole purpose is just to stroke through the distal half of those hair shafts. You don't need to put conditioner on the bottom half or on your scalp. Same thing when it comes to women who especially don't want to condition because of their fine hair. It's just where the hairs leave the skin. You do not need to put any conditioner on your hair shafts that are touching the scalp. If you feel like your bangs or the front part of your hair is a little bit dry, like I said earlier, all you need to do is just comb it through. But we still want to make sure that we're using a lower pH between 4.0 and 5.0 to seal those cuticles down. The reason why we really do need a condition is the outside hair window that we've been talking about, the cuticle. That's what's exposed to UV rays, wind, hair products, hair coloring. So it can get very dry. And what we don't want is your hair to break. We want it to be more bendable. And the only way to do that is to moisturize the distal half of your hair shafts. Here's a common question that I keep seeing on Reddit. Does anyone else see those no poo posts and think they're insane? Yes, they're absolutely insane. I don't know who came up with this idea. It was probably just to get followers and likes, but let's just throw some logic in it. As I discussed earlier, the purpose of a shampoo, its primary function is to clean the skin. So if you put a powder that's just to help the greasiness, let's think about what a powder is doing. That powder is going to mix with your daily buildup of oil, sweat, debris, dead skin cells, allergens, pollutions, and hair products. And the more days you go without washing and continue to put these powders on, all they're doing is they're just going to suck up all this dirt and plaque, and it stays. None of this stuff is evaporating. None of this stuff is leaving your skin. You're just accumulating more and more. So now we have a dry shampoo which has a lot of chemicals that now they're finding are not very safe. One of them happens to be benzene. And as you continue to apply it, because you continue to not wash, it is just going to accumulate with everything else that's building up on your scalp. No one can believe that that is very hygienic. Imagine doing that with your face. Imagine never washing your face, and to just minimize the greasiness, you have some sort of dry shampoo for your face, if you will. All it's doing is just going to keep mixing with the rest of your sweat and oil, as well as dead skin cells. How many women will continue to apply makeup without ever washing it off? That's not very sanitary. So I want everyone to understand that skin is skin. It doesn't matter if it's on your scalp, your face, and your body. We know that washing our face and body is necessary as a regular maintenance. So please understand the same goes with your scalp. One of the most common shampoo products that I see being used, especially in men, is Head and Shoulders. They've done a phenomenal job with bringing in ex-NFL athletes and current NFL athletes to tell people that this is a daily shampoo that should be used. Let's go back to that pH conversation. We believe that the pH of Head and Shoulders is around 8.0 when our goal is between 4.0 and 5.0. So if someone has dandruff and they're using that every day, they're not taking care of the basic facets of hair health, which is restoring the pH content. What I generally tell patients who have dandruff is to still use a low pH shampoo and conditioner every day, so that way the scalp stays as acidic as it can to create an unfavorable environment for the fungus. But then I'll usually prescribe ketoconazole 2% shampoo. What typically is over the counter is ketoconazole 1%, which is still okay, but I always prefer the 2%. But by just including ketoconazole 2% shampoo twice a week, we're not going to overly dry the hair, but also we're not going to create such a high pH environment. When I see people that are using Head and Shoulders every day, I typically tend to notice that their hair is a little bit drier than it should be. One most important thing about dandruff is, unfortunately, there's no cure. So typically people will use anti-dandruff shampoo when they have a breakout, when they actually should be using it when they have a breakout, but then move to a maintenance phase when they don't. We're trying to put it to sleep, but it never goes away. And so we're just waiting for the next flare up to occur. When we dig a little bit deeper about the concerns of people overwashing that would lead to hair loss, we talked about how we lose around 50 to 100 hairs a day. So if we do the math on that, if I'm someone that only washes my hair once a week, and to keep the math simple, I lose about 100 hairs a day, it's not outlandish to think that I'm going to lose around 600 or 700 hairs when I go into the shower. The reason why is when the seeds are done with the prior hair shaft, it's lived its life, it needs to leave, but it needs actual hand movement for us to help them leave. They don't have legs to spring out. So when you brush your hair, or you wash your hair, or you put your shirt on and you see some hairs flowing around you in the bathroom, a lot of those are just hairs that were meant to leave, but because they can't spring out on their own, they needed that manual manipulation to do so. So very commonly, when I speak to men and women who wash their hair infrequently, their biggest gripe about that is they're still seeing a lot of hair in the drain, and that's because they're allowing the number of days of those hair shafts to accumulate. So just washing your hair more frequently, you will not see as many hairs sitting in your drain or on your bathroom floor when you're washing your hair more frequently. Now, one thing to consider about shampoos pertaining to hair shedding is ingredients. If we have an allergy to a specific ingredient in the shampoo, it is going to scare those hairs away because there could have been an allergy onto the scalp. So if there is a chemical that I've never tried before and my skin doesn't like it, as a reaction, your hair is going to shed, or potentially there could be some breakage. That's usually going to be the common cause of a specific shampoo causing hair shedding or hair breakage. But most of the time, if we're seeing an overabundance of hairs coming out, it's because you actually have a hair loss condition and you need to go be checked out. Thanks for listening, guys. And to take a deeper dive, to get more information and more education, head to my website.